The inner critic, a terrifying, controlling, domineering voice inside your head that just wants to make your life miserable. Or is it? Hello, I'm Lewis, and I make videos on codependency, attachment theory, and all sorts of personal development topics. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then please hit like and subscribe. When I first started my healing journey, I thought the inner critic was something to get rid of. I consumed a lot of media that was about how to fight your inner critic, how to kill your inner critic, and how to really just get rid of it. And a lot of the messaging in these videos and articles was around basically telling your inner critic to F off. And I think that it can be helpful once you start noticing this voice in your head that's not telling you useful things to put some boundaries in the way. But I don't think actually that it's wise to be mean to it. I think you can be firm and you can say a no and you can say that's enough, but you don't have to be a dick about it. The reason for this is slightly counterintuitive, and it's because the inner critic is part of you. And actually, it was your best friend when you were growing up and you were facing difficult challenges. That's right, your inner critic is actually your best friend, your staunchest ally, who has been there your whole life defending you and who exists solely to keep you safe. Now, I was shocked when I realized this. I was like, how can this voice that's really unhelpful have been my helper? But the issue with the inner critic isn't necessarily what it is and what it's saying. It's that you have changed, your circumstances have changed, and this voice isn't helpful anymore. Let's get into it. As a child, you were wholly dependent and vulnerable, and these are characteristics of children, and they are what make them beautiful. But the issue is that a child is wholly dependent and vulnerable on whatever environment it grows up in, whatever family it grows up in. And if that environment is dysfunctional in any way, then the child is going to absorb that and start displaying dysfunctional behavior just to stay alive. And of course, it's not natural for children to display unhealthy and dysfunctional behavior. So this causes a lot of suffering that they then have to push down. I've only really scratched the surface of some of the suffering that I need to get in touch with and to feel in order to really heal and create a better connection with my inner child. But part of that work for me has actually been developing this relationship with my inner critic. I realized the other day, for example, that I just need to go somewhere and be really loud. I need to cry, I need to laugh, I need to scream, I just need to be loud. So I'm figuring that out. But another characteristic of children is that they're adaptable and they will do whatever it takes to survive. And so a child will internalize and start to act on these dysfunctional messages. Let me give you an example. If your father is overly attached to order and rules and structure and needs everything to be clean and tidy and perfect, including you, then as a child you're going to pick this up and internalize it and start not being messy and not being loud. And there'll actually be a voice that comes up in your head. Mine comes up just here and it goes, "Don't do that. Dad won't like it." But being quiet and clean and not loud are things that are the opposite of what children are. And so this voice has to develop to clamp them down so that they can be safe in their environment. And it's not a perfect coping mechanism by any means, but it helps the child to survive. And it's the best that a small little vulnerable child can do. And so even when that child is an adult and they are financially independent, they've moved out, they have a job, they might even have a family of their own, but they've still got that voice in their head from when they were a child. And that is what is known as their inner critic. And you can see, hopefully, how actually that voice was a wonderful thing. It kept them safe. But now it's out of date and it needs a software upgrade. And how do you give a software upgrade to your inner critic? Well, you've got to start noticing. Notice when you're trying to do something but you can't. Or you go and do something and the opposite happens. Just start noticing these experiences, because that's often when your critic will come in and unconsciously force or change your behavior. One way that's usually helpful to do this is retrospectively at the end of the day by journaling. Because it's really, really hard to do when you're right in the thick of it to try and notice what's going on. Whereas at the end of the day, you can step back and you go, that was weird. I wanted to tell my boss about this issue I was having, but I was scared, so I didn't. But that's now causing me more suffering. That's a great example. And as you start noticing these patterns, you'll realize how tricky it is because it feels normal for you. For me, it was expressing my emotions, and it still is. The other day in a therapy session, I was focusing in on something that was really sad for me, and I was really getting in touch. I was feeling my body and feeling up here in my throat, and I wanted to cry. And I got almost to that point, and then suddenly it went away. It was like, where did that go? It got squished down. And for the first time in my life, I noticed that actually happening in real time. And I was like, I just pushed my emotions down. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't want to do that, but something did. And I realized that, oh, that's my critic. Because the messaging of that is don't be loud, don't express your emotions, and don't have those needs, because that's really unhelpful. I didn't even know that I was so emotionally shut down until I started trying to get in touch with my emotions properly. And I realized that the biggest hindrance to that was my inner critic. And then, when I was a teenager, I was consuming a lot of media around how to be a man. And so none of that was very helpful either. But when I really did notice how little I experienced of my emotions, it was shocking. And obviously, I started noticing patterns. I would have it for my feelings. I would have it for expressing weakness or needs or being vulnerable. And as you start to notice the patterns in your life, you'll begin to build a theme, and you'll have a couple of key ones. It might be, don't be loud. It might be, don't stand out. You'll never be good enough. Don't be vulnerable. Don't have needs. That sort of thing. But once you've started noticing, you can actually start building a relationship with your critic, because you can find out, oh, my critic doesn't want me to express my emotions and be vulnerable. Why is that? Because your critic might be the internalized voice of someone else, but it's a part of you. And if it's a part of you, you're going to have to build a relationship with it, because it's not going away. Imagine if you didn't like your arm. You can't just chop off your arm. And you can't do that to a part of your psyche either. You're going to have to integrate it. And you can get in touch with and start building this relationship by using something called subpersonalities theory, which comes from psychosynthesis. And I'm just going to give you the key points of that. So to really get in touch with your inner critic, you can sit down somewhere quiet, somewhere comfortable, somewhere you're not going to be disturbed and that feels safe. And you can start conjuring up thoughts and feelings and the body posture of whatever it is that you're trying to deal with that your critic doesn't like. And once you're really feeling that, you can ask these 3 questions. 1, what do you want? And just let come up whatever comes up. That first thing that comes up, that's probably it. 2, what do you need? And 3, what quality do you have to give? These 3 critics will get right to the heart of these 3 critics. These 3 questions will get right to the heart of your inner critic and any subpersonality that you might want to deal with. But if we focus on it here, that first question around wants will reveal that superficial want that it is. Your critics might be, I want not to be vulnerable, I want to be indestructible, and I never want to have a sound or have any vulnerability or any needs ever. Fair enough. But then the second question, the need, really reveals that true desire underneath the wants. And so if the want is sit down, shut up, never try, the need might be keep me safe. And then the quality is the gift that your critic has to give you, once you've actually met its need. So a critic again that might be quiet, sit down, stay safe, could potentially have the quality of order or structure, which, when done in a very healthy way, can be a brilliant and necessary quality to a functional life. Inner critic is often one of the first things that people come to in recovery, the inner critic and the inner child, in this difficult dynamic. And working with it really has the potential to unlock a lot in your healing journey. If you can break free from the chains of your inner critic, then you will find the whole rest of the recovery process a lot easier. Not that it will be easy, it just makes it a little bit easier. And you can do that by not fighting it, not telling it to F off, but by building and nurturing a relationship with it and giving it the love and the care and whatever it needs to fulfill the need that it has, so that in return, it can give you a powerful quality that will aid you throughout your life and the rest of your recovery. That's all for today. Good luck on your healing journey, and I'll see you in the next one.